Hello and welcome to the Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings podcast. Today we are talking about Guantanamo Bay. I'm here with the panel as always, Ethan, Kimball, and Steven. I'm Nathaniel Horton. Let's start this discussion. All right, so to start the discussion, what is Guantanamo Bay?
A prison.
It's a naval base.
Yeah, it's a naval base.
It's a naval
with
base
a prison.
with a prison. Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I said.
In Cuba. That's an important detail.
So why do we have Guantanamo Bay?
Because
That's a great question. How did it happen in the first place? Was it the Spanish? Like when we blamed the Maine on Spain? And we
No, I think
I think we kind of claimed it, but now we rent it.
I think we claimed it, and the Bush administration used it to hold terrorists.
Well, it says it was built in 1898, something like that.
Yeah, and the Bush administration used it to hold terrorists.
All right, cool.
And then what happened under the Obama years is all those terrorists got released. They got put back in their home countries.
because they realized they don't have a reason to keep them.
Oh, this is interesting. I got another interesting report about how we do it. So it says here, it says the base covers 45 miles, straddles Guantanamo Bay, and is technically a U.S. rental property. So even if we claimed it, right now it's rental. However, it says each year the State Department cuts a check of $4,085 in rent, but Cuba wants to. It states that Cuban forces want the U.S. forces gone, and that we don't cash the check. So it says that we cut them a check every year for about $4,000 or so.
That's it?
But yeah, for rent of it every year. But Cuba does not cash it because they want our forces gone. So essentially, we're just writing them a pointless check, and we don't actually spend any money for rent.
So if Cuba wants us gone, why are we wasting taxpayer money to keep it there?
But it makes me wonder, who has the right? Do we have the right to be there then? So if we're not technically renting it out, is it our territory or?
I think Cuba has the right to take it if they.
I mean, it's a naval base. You can't just remove all military personnel from there.
Well, yeah, but
You can.
if it's a technical rental property and you're not actually paying rent, then the Cuban government has the right to evict you, just like the United States has the jurisdiction to evict you if you don't pay your rent in a house in the United States.
Or apartment.
It also says that.
So basically, this is what I'm hearing.
Well, I don't think they can evict you because they're just not cashing the checks. So technically you're paying them, but they're not cashing the checks.
Well,
so
if they don't cash the checks, then it's not paying them, right?
Well,
Yeah.
then it's not the U.S. fault, so they can't really evict them.
I mean, they can't, but they can do what they want.
So if Guantanamo Bay isn't being used for anything, why does the Pentagon want to spend $500 million on new Guantanamo Bay construction, as according to this article in the Miami Herald?
Because they got a plan for something,
I'm reading in the Miami Herald too.
and we don't know what
It
it is.
says,
We don't know what it is, but they got a plan for something.
So it's got other.
No.
But it's got other things other than just the detention center. Does it say that money was used for the detention center specifically?
It says in the title, I haven't gotten to finish the article yet, it's just spending on Guantanamo construction.
So
Construction. Why are we?
to piggyback
If
off
we're not even
those,
supposed to be there, why are we building there?
we're technically
Well, not that we're not supposed to be there.
Can you get off the whole if we're supposed to be there or not? We've moved past that. Anyway, so it says here on Miami Herald, same source, it says more than a third of the residents are Jamaican and Filipino workers. And it says they come in on Pentagon contracts and don't get to bring their families. So I assume that that's probably why we're spending that money, is to employ them.
Like housing?
Housing and to employ them. So it boosts their economy technically.
I still disagree with why we need to we don't need a detention center away from the United States.
Well, it's not just a detention center. It's got a McDonald's. It says here it's got the same source, Miami Herald. It says a 9-hole golf course.
I think the
beaches.
naval base is fine. I just disagree that we need a detention center that's away from the United States.
Why?
Why?
If a prisoner escapes from that detention center, they are no longer under our jurisdiction because
It's
they're in
the-
Cuba.
This prison is the most secure prison of any of the United States federal prisons.
And why can't we just have that in the United States?
Because
there's
we
no
don't
room.
want to bring suspected terrorists
Yeah.
into the United States.
Would you rather have a suspected terrorist break out in another country or in your country?
I'd rather have the jurisdiction to catch them
Wouldn't.
again.
I wouldn't, because then you can just.
Because that works so well with Osama bin Laden.
Yeah. Yeah. It took us how many years
A
to
lot.
actually, what was it, 2011 when he was killed?
Yeah, since 9/11, it took about.
Technically,
It
we weren't
took
even
10
supposed to be
years to
there.
find a man in his,
Technically, we weren't even supposed to be there when we did get him.
Yep.
I mean,
No, we weren't even supposed to
Yeah,
be
the
there.
United States is good with following
Yeah.
international law.
Yeah,
But-
we weren't supposed
Yeah.
to be there.
we just kind of do what, I think the
We do whatever
president,
the frick we want to.
honestly, I think the precedent that we've kind of done whatever we want to sets the standard for we can have this detention center here and we can have it because we have been attacked before by terrorist groups, and if they are suspected of terrorism,
United States
we need
don't
to get
listen
the
to nobody.
intel for it. And honestly, even if they are not a terrorist, if at least one or two of them are suspected terrorists, any intel that they can give us,
How do you know they're not feeding you false intel?
no, the most of the intel that they're going to get from these guys is going to be like tactics. It's not going to be like intel of where somebody is, probably. And the military uses it at its. The military is going to use intel to get its own discretion, but any like intel they can get that could possibly save lives of American heroes, I think, is worth it in the end. You know, but at the same time, it's not really worth to spend that many American dollars on the detention center
Yeah.
itself. It's
So-
worth to get the intel, but not to spend the money on the detention center.
So,
well,
with
the
five-
only reason they would upgrade it is if they're planning to do something like major, right?
What are you talking about?
Like if they're planning to put more people in there, do stuff like that.
Well, they've already got like,
They have 40 people in there right now.
Yeah.
and
Exactly, and if they're
$500 million is a lot of money for 4 people, and there have been some
Exactly.
surveillance images of the Guantanamo Bay prison area that has shown that what they've done with the construction site, it's bigger than it has been ever before.
exactly, so they wouldn't do that for no reason.
Yes.
They're doing it for a reason.
Yes.
So they have a plan.
I just think that
We
plan
just-
should be executed inside the United States with an existing federal.
but here's the thing.
I agree.
Obviously,
I don't want
these
to- I don't
obviously
want- if
these
somebody does break out, I don't
prisoners
want
are
them
not
in here.
obviously these prisoners are not U.S. citizens. But if you bring them into the United States, does the laws change for how we can retrieve intel from them or treat these prisoners change, or does it stay the same?
Basically, this boils down to, should we treat terrorists from other countries the way that we should treat people in the United States?
You
Yeah.
don't
No.
Do
know.
terrorists
You
have-
don't even know that they're terrorists, though. They're suspected.
Do suspected terrorists have our
What is
basic
it?
rights?
That
Innocent
would
until
de-
proven guilty?
Basic,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, that system is based on U.S. citizens.
That's true. but
So
still,
these
like-
are not U.S. citizens, and I would think that if we can establish a system of how much suspicion, like if they're like constantly giving up red flags for if they are a terrorist, obviously it's more than likely they are. So we probably shouldn't give them certain rights, you know. But
If you think about it like this, right? If a British person were to get arrested inside the United States, we would give them adequate, we would give them all of the rights that we would give an arrested person from the United States, because we would say, you don't have to say anything that would incriminate yourself, but we don't give those rights to suspected terrorists, and that's wrong. But
Exactly.
yeah, obviously, we're all human.
we are.
But at the same time, how many times have you ever seen a terrorist treat any American as a human?
That's true.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. Bottom line should be in the United States, not in Cuba, and it's spending too much tax
So
dollars.
if we do bring this prison of these, which is 40 inmates, it's not like it's going to be this huge mass of people.
Yeah.
However, what do we do? Okay, I got two questions for you. First is, where do we put these refugees,
How much time
or
do we
not
have left?
refugees, these prisoners
Right.
in America? What kind of prison do we put them in and where? And also, what do we do if another terrorist organization erupts and we need to take in more prisoners than just these 40, and it's considered the once 800 that Guantanamo Bay had? So what happens if we need to bring in like 800?
That's probably
and put them
why
in
they're
one
building more
So
onto the
where
base.
where do we put them, and what do we do if we have to bring in even more?
I think if you take the prisoners from Guantanamo Bay and put them in the United States, they need to be
Where?
in a secure federal prison.
Okay.
Two, not all in the same federal prison, because these are high-profile criminals.
That's-
Now, but here's the thing. To stop you there, who's watching them if we're separating them and it's different prisons? Does that mean we're going to have to hire military guards and put them in different prisons and they not be on their tour at the naval base anymore? And
I think I think just the addition of the 40 is not going to increase the amount of employees that the American.
I do believe they need to
Prison
some
But
system.
is it going to be like military, a set number of ratio to military police per prisoner that comes in and is put there?
You don't-
Or
I think the
does
same-
the same people watch them?
I think the same people should watch them.
So what do they need? Would they require training? I mean, that's a totally different thing. You're watching someone who's a suspected terrorist who's obviously a higher threat level than somebody who's committed federal tax evasion, you know? So,
Yeah. All right. Final question to wrap up the podcast for today. How would each of you, as President of the United States, handle Guantanamo Bay? We'll start with Ethan, then go to Kimball, and then Stephen.
I would eliminate the detention center. Take the guards from the detention center, not from the naval base, but from the detention center, and move them to where the prisoners are in America, and put the prisoners in the federal prisons, and eliminate the funding that the government is giving to the detention center, and put it into something more domestically important, like infrastructure or education.
All right, Kimball.
I would keep the detention center at Guantanamo Bay, but I wouldn't have given them the funding that they've been given to expand as much as they are, because it's just ridiculous. You don't need that much money.
Okay, Stephen.
I honestly don't know what I would do. Guantanamo Bay, obviously the detention center, you know, the reasons for it to not be there are greater than the reasons for it to be there. But at the same time, we waste money bringing them even to Cuba out of countries like Iraq and Pakistan and such. But the problem would be if we had detained them in those countries, then they are a terrorist. They're not only a criminal to the United States, but they're also a criminal to Iraq and Pakistan. And I think jurisdiction issues of which country handles their sentencing and their punishment comes to an issue. So bringing them into the U.S. handles some of the jurisdiction issues they can handle it. So it would probably be somewhat beneficial to continue to have Guantanamo Bay, as long as they don't continue to waste money on upgrades and personnel when there's only 40 prisoners. So I would probably keep it.
All right, thank you guys for your wonderful opinions. This has been the Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings podcast. There will be Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings podcast extra coming out soon.